we are going to give you access like no one has ever seen before. We're having Jet Lawrence bring you through a perfect race day in San Diego.
Welcome, San Diego. Dude, I can't stop laughing. Ended up clipping the down. Whiskey throttle. Hey, how we doing? No problem, guys. Thank you. Have a good one.
We'll take you inside the Honda rig to show you what race day looks like from the fastest 250 rider alive. You can be a part of this first of its kind interactive experience only inside the Moto Academy app.
I don't know if he's going to teach that technique.
No, he can do it.
AJ, when he's teaching kids, hey, first lap of practice, go out, look like a goon. And then after you get done doing that, and go get P1.
I've been riding my dirt bike like crazy. And I'm getting pretty good at it. I think.
I mean, that's good.
There's so much that's happened, actually. I hired Ryan Sipes for a day.
Yes.
For some one-on-one training, which was funny. I've never done that in my life.
Oh, for you?
So, for me.
Oh.
Yeah, well, Ryan Sipes did do a class for Moto Academy in Las Vegas yesterday, was it?
Yep.
Or 2 days ago with Coach James. And then he went on Pulp MX, and I think he maybe talked about it a little bit on Pulp, which is cool, but did a class in Vegas, had a bunch of students out there, like 30 or 35 students for that class. Apparently it went really well, other than it being super windy for those guys. But 2 days before that, I hired Ryan to train me on the Supercross track. So he came out to the dog pound, and I think he spent 3 hours with me. It was really, really interesting. All we did was work corners, and we kind of worked on finding some speed and where the speed came from, and kind of the entire topic of the day became my vision. And my vision was the problem, which was really not super surprising, but it was just interesting, because what was happening is I've kind of reached I had definitely been stuck in like a speed plateau. Since I started training, it was like huge ramp up of progression. And then it felt like I was plateaued for quite a while, because I wasn't trying to go fast anymore. I was just more so just trying to do more laps. But then that sort of reached a plateau as well. And now it's like, okay, well, I've got to find some speed here. And as soon as Ryan started working with me that day, it was like the first 60, 70% of the turn was amazing. That last 20, 30, 40% of the turn, I would screw up. And I had clear goggles on so you could see where my eyes were. And he described it as, he kept saying I was running over my eyes, which meant that I was good at picking a spot, looking past it, picking a spot, looking past it. But when it came to that last part of the turn, which is, by the way, normally the most technical part of the turn, I would just stare at it until I got to it and rode by it. So I'd run over the point that I was looking at. And so it was making, as I was trying to go faster, it was making everything come at me a million miles an hour. And as soon as I learned to attack the turn at speed and then look beyond that last point in the corner, is when the speed like came, and it came easily. And what's been really cool, and I'm glad that, I mean, it's pretty amazing that this has happened this way. We did that session. I think I've trained for 3 days since then. All 3 days have been with like kind of different groups of riders, and just everybody's like, how are you going so fast all of a sudden? I've like instantly pieced it together in my motos around the whole track. Like it was like I got speed in 1 day, which is very, very abnormal. I think it was just that I had been riding so far below my limit for so long that I just like upped it so much, and all it required was knowing where to look, as weird as that sounds.
Well, that's weird. That's weird.
I've gone, think about it. I mean, I've ridden for the last, let's say, at least the last 6 years, probably longer, going slow. In my opinion, slow. So now that I want to go faster, like you have to recalibrate and think about where you're supposed to look at certain times, or else everything comes at you way, way too fast. So I think I just needed that 1 day of him just reminding me of that, and boom. Wow. I'm just suddenly faster.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting. It's also like, you know, it's a good reminder that even trainers can use it. You know, like, people would probably think in your shoes, it's like, well, if you're teaching everybody else how to ride, like, why would you need to be taught how to ride? But it's like, how is it different? You know what I mean? How is it different to have someone there watching you?
Wish we could have filmed it. Wish we could have filmed it. It's so different. I mean, having somebody, there's nothing that Ryan could have told me that I wouldn't have been like, oh, yeah, I know. But it was just like, first of all, having somebody there to force me to really try and go fast in the turns. That was step one. And that was really my first day of like just breaking the corners apart and just trying to actually add speed. We would do technique work. We would do our motos. We would do our sprints. But there was never really any like dedicated section work for speed. And as soon as he had me do that, it was like we just had these instant realizations of, holy crap, these are the couple of things that I need to work on. Another thing that I actually changed, and this is very like situational, was sitting earlier on a smooth supercross track to actually attack it fast. The standing deep into the corner, like what I would do in most situations, is definitely not the fastest way, unless the track's completely hammered. But on your normal supercross track, you need to get your transition to the seat a little sooner so you can just start that turn. Oh, and another huge thing, he told me that my goal is to enter so fast that I don't have to get on the throttle until the last 30% of the turn, like at all. Literally coast until the last 30% of the turn. And that sounded a little backwards to me. I think that's something that you would only tell a really high level person. But once he told me that, I was entering so fast where I'm like, this doesn't feel right, this doesn't feel right. And then I would just coast, and then I would only have to get on the throttle right at the end. And the benefit to that is I didn't have to, and I see this from beginners as well, I didn't have to like modulate the throttle in the interim. So for that whole first half of the turn, or the clutch for that matter, or really even the front brake, I just kind of like threw it in there to the end, carrying that momentum, and then just got on the throttle at the end of the corner.
Super interesting.
And it worked.
But the alternative, so if you were telling me, someone my level, some amateur guy, what would look different, right?
You'd have to get on the throttle probably more at like the 30% mark in the turn as opposed to the 80% mark, because there's just no way that the average person could enter that fast and be comfortable with it. I think that's why you wouldn't give that advice to the normal person, because it's just, it takes a long time to build. He was having me enter the corner so fast, it felt very scary. It just felt like there's no way that I'm going to be able to stay in this thing. Now, and it was working. And I posted that clip on Instagram of me like hitting that left-hander into the whoops. I was like dragging handlebar, and it didn't really feel that way. And I was able to just do it over and over again.
Now, were you just working like a rutted corner, or do you think that applies everywhere?
I definitely think it's situational a little bit. The track that day, it was left rough from the day before, so the ruts were pretty deep. They were pretty hard ruts. And we worked like 7 different turns, all of which were somewhat similar, but the same technique worked in all of those turns. And we went to the bottom pad today, so the other supercross track, and I was applying the same technique today. And actually I was able to get, by the shop where you hit the whoops on the bottom pad 90-degree right, and then like Jet and Hunter would triple in from that tight little turn. Got that. So I've been able to jump that since, which is cool.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're getting it slowly but surely.
So what do you think? You're a week and a half out from Houston. You don't have graphics. You don't have suspension. Got nice gear. But
I have nice gear. Fox just sent a huge box to my house in Virginia.
Probably with the old logo on it.
So it probably, yeah.
So what are we thinking?
Okay, so this isn't a goal, and in fact, this isn't even an expectation. I'm going to try to give an outsider's. If I was not me right now, I'm going to pretend I'm not me. Based on what I've looked like and how I'm stacking up against the other guys there, I think that I would say I absolutely make the main event straight out of the heat race. And probably right around 12th to 15th in the main.
Great.
I'd be happy with that.
I would be more than happy with that.
There's a part of me that thinks that I could do way better than that. And there's a part of me that thinks that I might show up to the race and still have that same mentality on the starts of like, nah.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
That'll be the only thing. That'll be the only thing that holds you back this year is your head.
Yeah. Which, I don't know. I mean, I can decide if I don't want my head to hold me back. But then there's a part of me that's like, oh, if there's so many parts of me saying shut it down, then I kind of just feel like I need to just shut it down. But if that's the case, then that might just be my sign of don't race anymore, period. But I don't think that's going to happen, because I think that my problem the last however many years has been that I have been so unprepared and so out of shape that I didn't want to get a start. So I was terrified of the start because I had to I just didn't want to get it. It wasn't safe for me to get it. It wasn't safe for me to not get it. I think my mindset will be different going into Houston, in that I'm going to qualify well. I very well I'll qualify top 10. If I qualify top 10, I'm going to get a top 5 gate pick, at which point I'm going to be like, all right, well, I'm going to have a sweet gate pick. I'm going to want to get the start.
Yeah, dude.
So I think it's going to be different.
You're going to be lined up next to some factory dudes, bro. Like,
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun. Yeah, I mean, I think you got it. I think the biggest thing that we always ran into last year is, I mean, who am I to talk? But whatever. It's a podcast. We're here to give stupid opinions, right? So the biggest thing for you is you never rode around people. So as soon as that gate dropped and you're like, oh, there's 20 people around me, I don't want to be near any of you guys. Like, you know what I mean? If that has changed, because you're doing motos with other dudes, right?
Especially the last week, I've been doing motos like really on top of people. So
good.
Like yesterday, for example, it was just Chance, myself, and Jonah. So it was just us three. And the first moto, Michael Burns sent Chance out first, Jonah out second, and I went out third. I think we're doing just 5 lappers. Immediately, I get right into the back of Jonah, and now I'm just like exploring the whole track, running it in on him, like trying to make the pass wherever I can. And it was like, if you had seen that the way I was riding, it was like, holy cow, he's actually being aggressive. My pass that I actually made on him ended up being like kind of a block pass. And I didn't feel uncomfortable, where I know for a fact if I had been that close to somebody, not even in a race, just in a practice scenario, just being that close to somebody, I didn't trust my ability because I didn't have enough seat time to be able to dodge things, where now it's like I just feel like I could put the bike wherever I need to, and I just feel really, really comfortable. Therefore, confident. If you guys are enjoying these podcast clips and you want to watch full episodes, you can subscribe at club.themotoacademy.com.